Hi, Dave Roscoe here. It is Sunday, April 27th, 2025. I've got an update on the Banxa situation that I want to share. And because it's a slow news day, I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about Pi IOU tokens. This was something that was trading prior to open mainnet. A few people have asked me about it, specifically what happened with those tokens and why they were trading so much higher than the Pi coin. So we'll talk about that today. But first, let's go over the metrics. The circulating supply is currently at 6.96 billion Pi, and there have been no migrations this weekend. The trend continues. Since I've started tracking user accounts migrated, we have a total of 210,303 user accounts. That's not a lot considering that there's a backlog of millions. We're going to need to do a lot better with migrations if we're going to get through that backlog anytime soon. There's 45 million Pi in the Pi migration wallet, with migrated unlocked rewards at 1.82 billion Pi and 3.5 million unlocked Pi that is now free to be traded on the open markets. Looking at the price action, the Pi coin is currently trading at 63 cents, which is down 2.52% from this time 24 hours ago, with a daily trading volume of 59.99 million, which is up 15.83% from this time 24 hours ago. I got an update from Banxa today with regards to my query from a few days ago, asking about the validity of the Coinpedia article saying that the Pi coin had been delisted from Banxa. I'll read the response to you. Hi, David. Thank you for reaching out and for your dedication to providing accurate information to the Pi network community. We sincerely apologize for the delay in responding to your inquiry. Due to a high volume of requests, we're working hard to assist everyone and appreciate your patience. To confirm, Banxa does indeed support Pi coin. We understand the concerns this may raise within the Pi community, and we recommend referring to official Pi network channels for any further updates or alternatives. If you have any additional questions or need further clarification, we are here to assist. Thank you again for reaching out, and we appreciate your continued support of the Pi community. Regards, Marianne B., Customer Experience, Banxa. It's not really an answer to my question, but it seems to coincide with what we've been seeing. There have been areas where the Pi coin is no longer available, and we don't know why. As I've mentioned in previous videos, it could be regional restrictions, which now require additional red tape to be navigated before it can come back. But at the end of the day, we don't know. I find it interesting that they say that we should talk to official Pi network channels because according to Pi network, Banxa doesn't even exist. Like I mentioned earlier, before the Pi network went open mainnet, there were Pi IOU tokens that were trading on certain exchanges. Those prices were anywhere from $30 each to over $100, depending on when you were looking. And as you know, in reality, the Pi coin is trading at significantly less. A few people have asked me, what happened to those IOU tokens and why were they trading so much higher than the Pi coin? I'm going to talk about that now. This is quite involved and many of you may not be interested in this, so I won't take offense if you decide to bow out now, but you've been warned. Prior to Pi Network's open mainnet launch, several cryptocurrency exchanges listed Pi tokens as IOUs. These IOU tokens were essentially placeholders, allowing users to speculate on Pi's price before real Pi coins were available. In an IOU listing, the exchange offers a Pi USDT or similar trading pair without actual Pi coins on-chain, with the understanding that trades would be settled with real Pi once the project officially launches. Bitmart, CoinW, Bitcan, XT.com, and others enabled trading of Pi IOUs during Pi's enclosed mainnet phase, when real Pi could not yet circulate externally. During this period, Pi network was running an enclosed mainnet, meaning that it was firewalled, where Pi transfers were restricted to inside the Pi ecosystem. The Pi core team explicitly had not opened the network for external transactions or exchange listings. Any Pi token trading on exchanges at this stage was unofficial and not backed by actual transferable Pi coins. Pi Network's open mainnet finally went live on February 20th, 2025. This milestone ended the enclosed phase and, in theory, allowed real Pi coins to be moved outside the Pi app to external wallets and exchanges. In anticipation of this event, many exchanges that had previously listed Pi IOUs took action to manage those positions. Several exchanges simultaneously announced they would delist or suspend the Pi IOU markets ahead of the launch, often citing user protection. For example, the exchange CoinW announced, quote, "Because Pi Network will open the network on February 20th, CoinW will delist Pi IOU on February 13th to protect users' rights." End quote. Users holding Pi IOU on CoinW were advised to close their positions before delisting. Similarly, exchange Bitcan also halted trading of Pi IOUs, noting that the decision was part of ensuring a safe, quality experience for users. In effect, these platforms did not carry the IOU trading through the mainnet launch. They shut down the IOU markets in advance. Other exchanges that had offered Pi IOUs followed suit. HTX announced in a December 13th notice, well before the February launch, that it was immediately canceling Pi USDT IOU trading and settling users' positions in cash. Quote, "HTX will automatically convert the number of Pi IOUs that users hold onto into USDT. In this case, HTX proactively closed the IOU market and paid out users in stablecoin, equivalent to their Pi IOU holdings, rather than attempt to deliver actual Pi later. Not every exchange removed Pi trading ahead of mainnet, however. Bitmart and XT.com were notable for keeping Pi IOU markets open up to the launch date. These exchanges allowed speculation to continue closer to and even during the mainnet transition, but they had to determine how to reconcile IOUs once real Pi became available. Each exchange handled this transition differently. As noted, HTX decided to delist the Pi IOU early and convert all IOU holdings to USDT for its users. This meant that by the time mainnet launched, HTX customers no longer held any Pi IOUs. They had been paid out in USDT at the prevailing rate upon delisting. CoinW and Bitcan forced closure of positions. These exchanges, like CoinW and Bitcan, simply halted trading and delisted the IOU tokens around mid-February 2025, just before mainnet. They encouraged users to close out their positions beforehand. Any users who didn't exit likely had their positions closed by the exchange at the last trading price or a fixed cutoff price. Essentially, these platforms did not attempt any conversion to real Pi. They just terminated the contracts. The rationale given was user protection and the uncertainty of Pi's launch. Bitmart continued to offer Pi IOU trading through the mainnet launch, but with the promise that IOU holders would receive actual Pi coins at a 1-to-1 ratio once available. In the lead-up to open mainnet, Bitmart announced plans for a 1-to-1 swap of IOUs to real Pi. However, executing this was contingent on obtaining real Pi tokens and being approved by the Pi network team. After February 20th, Bitmart suspended Pi trading for over a month as it awaited clearance from the Pi core team to perform this conversion. Specifically, Bitmart needed to pass the Pi network's KYB, or Know Your Business verification, essentially an approval process for the exchange in order to receive Pi and distribute it to IOU holders. As of April 25, 2025, Bitmart resumed Pi trading after hinting that an official approval was imminent. This suggests that Bitmart either secured the Pi tokens or was very close to doing so, allowing it to honor the one-to-one swap. Bitmart's IOU holders are slated to get real Pi coins deposited to their accounts, 1 Pi per IOU, once the integration is fully sorted. Now, one thing I'll point out here is that by converting 1 IOU to 1 Pi, whoever bought that IOU at $30 to $100 or more is now being paid in Pi that's only worth about 60 cents. XT.com was mentioned alongside Bitmart as one of the major exchanges still running Pi IOUs just before mainnet. It's likely XT either attempted a similar conversion or simply froze trading around launch. Many community discussions expected XT to also do a one-to-one conversion. Some exchanges may have taken hybrid approaches. If any IOU listing exchange neither clearly cash settled nor immediately swapped tokens, it likely froze trading and negotiated with Pi Network for a resolution. Ultimately, however, the choices boiled down to cash compensation or actual Pi distribution. It's important to highlight that the Pi core team did not directly facilitate any of these IOU conversions. The onus was on each exchange to handle its IOU obligations. Pi Network's role was mainly gatekeeping access to the mainnet. For an exchange to obtain Pi for a swap, it had to go through the network's KYB process. The lack of an official update or direct support from Pi team during the immediate launch period was noted, meaning exchanges were left to sort it out largely on their own. The Pi Network core team has consistently maintained that any pre-mainnet exchange listing of Pi was unauthorized. They made multiple public clarifications to address confusion around IOUs. The team stated they were aware of third-party exchanges, attempting to list Pi or tokens purporting to be Pi without permission. They stressed that Pi was an enclosed mainnet stage and not approved for listings on any exchange at that time. Thus, any such listing was not sanctioned by the project. The core team warned that these tokens were not real Pi and that engaging with them could be dangerous for users' funds. In their words, the project, quote, is not affiliated with and has not authorized any listing on exchanges, end quote, during the enclosed period. They emphasized that no Pi could be transferred to exchanges yet, and thus any Pi trading on exchanges was essentially speculative. Quote, Pi Network has no association with any of these exchanges, which are acting without the consent, authority, or involvement of the network, end quote. In summary, the Pi Network team regarded all IOU tokens on exchanges as unofficial and potentially fraudulent. They neither sold Pi to those exchanges nor recognized those IOU-derived prices as Pi's real value. The legitimacy of Pi, in the team's view, would only begin once the network opened and Pi could be traded from user wallets with the core team's consent. In fact, one analysis pointed out that the total IOU supply traded was around 70 million Pi across exchanges, whereas Pi's actual circulating supply upon launch would likely make the real price much lower. This disparity meant IOU prices were probably inflated and could crash, leaving exchanges exposed. Many therefore chose to limit that exposure by closing IOU trades pre-launch. Exchanges handled it in varying ways. Some quickly pulled the plug and reimbursed traders in dollars, while others navigated a complex process to swap IOUs for real Pi coins. IOU holders' fate thus ranged from getting cashed out with no Pi delivered to eventually receiving genuine Pi in their exchange wallets, depending on where they traded. As of now, with Pi's open network in place, real Pi coins have begun trading on exchanges under more legitimate circumstances. The IOU chapter has largely closed. The episode serves as a reminder of the risks of IOU trading until a crypto project is fully launched. Any placeholder markets operate in a gray area. In Pi's case, those who speculated on IOUs faced both the possibility of sharp price volatility and the uncertainty of how their IOUs would be honored. Thanks to a mix of precautions and eventual mainnet support, the transition was managed without major exchange defaults. But the Pi network team's advice to its users was to avoid third-party markets until Pi was officially tradable, advice that in hindsight was well-founded given the complexities observed. Well, if you're still with me after that, I thank you. That was a lot of information to digest. There are people who are curious about what happened with the IOUs, and now you know. Some people made money, some people lost money. If you were lucky enough to sell your positions or had your positions sold, you likely made a significant amount of money depending on how many IOUs you owned. But if you were swapped out at a 1-to-1 ratio, you likely lost a significant amount of money because the actual value of the Pi coin was nowhere near those IOU prices. There was a much smaller amount of those IOUs in circulation. Now that the Pi coin is out and we're looking at billions of Pi coin, the price is significantly lower. People took a chance on the IOU markets. Some won, some lost. That chapter is closed, and the new chapter is in full swing. And we're just going to have to see where this all goes. So don't panic. Stay the course. And remember, the success of the Pi network begins with you. Pi to the moon. Peace.